We talked, and I'm trying to anticipate some of your questions, we talked as an example, why is this coming up now? That's my question to him. You know, this is an issue that in our immediate relationship is 10 or 12 years old. I pointed out that Lee Gun himself was the chairman of the subcommittee of four-party talks in the late 1990s, as I was the U.S. subcommittee chairman on this very issue, how to transition from the armistice to a more permanent peace talks. And those talks, as you all know, failed in Geneva in the late 1990s. He had no good answer for that. I asked him why he was focused on a U.S. DPRK bilateral discussion on this issue when we in the past have already established that this is an issue primarily between North and South, and it also concerns the United States and China. He fumbled a little bit on that, but came back and said, well, that's one of the issues that we can discuss with Special Representative Bosworth as to the composition of this discussion and what the agenda is. I'm going to refer to a note or two to make sure that I don't leave anything out. He emphasized that they were no longer bound by the six-party talks, agreements, or statements. I think that's important that they said that before, but he is reiterating this just prior to Ambassador Bosworth's trip. He also, on a number of occasions, in a number of ways, told us that if Ambassador Bosworth were to come and simply and suddenly say, return to six-party talks, that in fact would be a waste of time. That is, the meeting would not be very fruitful. They fully understood what the U.S. position was. They had listened to both the President and Secretary Clinton. They had seen the statement out of the State Department that had indicated that the purpose of the Bosworth trip was to evaluate the North Korean commitment to the six-party process and the 19 September 2005 joint statement. One of the other things that he implied was that the Chairman Kim Jong-il was in good health. He didn't say that, but what he was suggesting at the very beginning of this is that a number of international papers have reported on the number of trips that General Kim has made throughout the country this year. There was 3 times the amount being made last year. So the implication there was to send that signal to me that everything was fine in terms of their senior leadership. The other part of that, as we closed out this 2.5-hour discussion, was Lee Gun bringing up economic development and saying, you know, you're going to be meeting with one of the directors of the Ministry of Trade, for which I said, I'm not interested. We had this meeting with the same individual in April of 2008 at our request, and that meeting was very unsatisfactory. At that time, Kim Chol indicated that you're wasting my time. We know that U.S. companies are really not going to conclude contracts, and therefore whatever time we're spending with you is just a waste. If you are European, then we know that they'd be very well in a contract. So I told Lee Gun, I'm not interested in going back. Everything will be changed. It is totally a different situation. He is referring back now, as he started with the emphasis on 2012 and economic development. So when we went over to the Ministry of Trade, in fact, the same individual was there. I reminded him that 20 months ago that we had a conversation in which he had indicated that I was wasting his time or the U.S. would be wasting their time. And he said, well, okay, things have changed. And what they went through, and he went through this very elaborate sales pitch on why there should be foreign direct investment in North Korea. That in fact they have a focus on economic development. Their strategy falls in the mining, coal, transportation, metals industry, and infrastructure development. And he was very quick to point out that the development of, or the entry into foreign investment is not a contradiction with their philosophy of self-sufficiency. I'm not quite sure, but that's a point that he tried to make. He indicated that their rules and regulations are going through changes. He gave us some very specific things, such as that they are developing a rule or regulation that says that North Korea will not nationalize foreign investments, foreign joint ventures. But if they have to, for some extreme reason, that they will be compelled to compensate that company for that. They are in the process of changing these regulations, bless you, to guarantee that foreign companies can move profit outside of North Korea. They said foreign companies no longer will be required to pay land use fees, that in a joint venture, that's the contribution of the North Korean company. They changed, this is, for us, I think this struck us. It indicated they've established a new minimum wage for these joint ventures, and that's 30 euro per month. Now, when you translate that to dollars and then compare that to the Kaesong Industrial Complex, where the range right now is around $57.50 a month, that 30 euro is less. They are undercutting the competition with the Kaesong Industrial Complex. He was very clear to say these are absolutely two separate areas. This is what we're trying to do to attract direct foreign investment. We read on the airplane going in that there's a new campaign to build 100,000 units, housing units, for residents of Pyongyang. That was mentioned by Lee Gun. The director, Hyun Chol, brought it up again, suggesting that a foreign company that invests in the construction of these 100,000 units would be given preferential treatment in the mineral extraction area. That we all know, the Chinese and others are very interested there. The pitch that he gave was essentially, come do business in North Korea. We have a very well-educated workforce. We have a stable political environment. I guarantee you there will be no strikes. A very interesting pitch on this regard. Other things?
The 3 to 5 year mark.
Yeah, this is and this is something that Lee Gun, the guy in the political arena and the foreign affairs arena, was beginning to tell us, and that Chol also extolled, is that taxation on companies doing business in North Korea, there would be a moratorium until 5 years after they begin to make profits. And then in the first 3 years, that there would be 100% exemption, followed by 2 years of 50% exemption. So they're going all out on this economic development. Now, why am I spending time? Now I'm going to get a little bit of the analysis here for you. And then we're going to move on to some of the impressions that we had that Ms. Finnemann will cover. I think this is very important because it gives us a glimpse into their priorities, what they're thinking, where they're putting resources. They're expending a great deal of effort. They're trying to revise their regulations. They are changing the way that they deal with the outside. And it represents both an opportunity and a vulnerability in my mind. I can get to that a little bit later as you may want to talk about Ambassador Bosworth's trip there. In a nutshell, I came away with the conclusion that the North Koreans have found an issue in which to detract from the central point of the Bosworth trip, and that is the decision by North Korea to return to six-party talks. And that the North Koreans believe, by telling the United States, they can't make that decision until the situation with the United States has changed, that they're guaranteed that there's no longer a hostile policy. They rationalize that in the sense that there is an inconsistency between U.S. administrations, from Clinton to Bush to Obama to whoever follows Obama, that they can never be certain of what the policy will be. But by moving to a peace treaty, that there is an internationally legal document in which will govern the relationship between the United States and North Korea from their point of view. I think that's a rationale. I think this is a negotiating ploy to avoid the discussion and the commitment to come back to six-party talks.